Jamie Dimon, who's the longtime CEO of JPMorgan and kind of the dean of Wall Street, if you will, began warning about geopolitical challenges shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, and his language around that has gotten increasingly strong in the years since. So he said it dwarfs any other concern in his career, and he said it's the most dangerous and complicated state of the world since World War II. And even Monday at the firm's investor day, he was saying it's very, very, very high. And so last year he asked one of his deputies to set up a unit to really provide clients with insight on all of this. So they hired a man named Chollet, who was at the Pentagon until January, to run it, and then also a woman named Lisa Sawyer, who was also at the Pentagon, and she had worked in government relations at JPMorgan earlier in her career. So it's a small group, and what they're doing is really, liaising across JPMorgan, all the different, everything from the people in charge of country risk, because they're in all these countries, to research, and then doing these reports, client events, and so on.
What's interesting is that it really dovetails with what everyone seems to be saying, is that investment theses will have to be driven in part by nationalistic policies because of all the geopolitical risk, right? Like, you can't rely on Russia for gas, so Europe has to figure out its own policy. Do they want to rely on the US, or do they want to find their own source of energy? So it's like, in my world, in energy, that's what everyone's kind of talking about, is you nationalize your resources, and that's sort of along the same lines. Like, geopolitics now runs the table.
Yeah, totally. And like, at least the reports that came out today, they weren't instructive to clients so much as they were kind
picture painting.
Yeah, and giving, here are the potential outcomes, and here are the percentages as far as likelihood of each outcome. So I think they said for a deal between Russia and Ukraine, it was like 15% for best case scenario, 20% for still okay, 50 for not great, and 15 for worst case. So, and then it kind of outlines what those scenarios would look like. And so, it presents clients with those scenarios, that information, and then they can think about their businesses, whether it's a huge company or, so a small company that is concerned for, whatever reason dealing with their business about the outcome there.
And you think about JPMorgan, I mean, they just have a presence everywhere on the globe, and just like the local country manager would probably have a really good insight. We certainly get the benefit here at Bloomberg News by having journalists on the ground and having bureaus and bureau chiefs, and it's probably something similar for these big investment banks. Are other investment banks thinking about this as something they need to address, geopolitical risk, providing some advice to their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been a trend, among Wall Street firms in recent years. Really since COVID, they've been adding, former military leaders and former diplomats, even former spies, to try to, last year JPM brought on Mark Milley as a special advisor. And so we've seen a lot of things like that across the street as they're trying to, get a grip, both for themselves internally, their own executives, and then also their clients. And Jamie Dimon is on the road all the time.
Yep.
And so this was something that he, it was his thing that he wanted to set up, and really a result of talking to people around the globe.